If you're like me, you've probably always thought of chicken and waffles as entirely a creation of Southern cuisine. While fried chicken was undoubtedly perfected in the South, the combination with the waffle requires a little bit of backstory.
Waffle irons were first introduced to the Americas by Thomas Jefferson upon his return from France in 1780. He brought 4 of the newfangled kitchen gadgets back home. The new treat was a hit and considered a delicacy for the time. In Philadelphia in the early 1800s, a dish was served that featured fried catfish and waffles. But the dish we know today was perfected in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance by Joseph T. Wells, proprietor of the Wells Supper Club. Stars like Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, and Nat King Cole were regulars with irregular hours, usually frequenting the restaurant in the early morning after the jazz clubs had closed. Not sure how to best keep his famous guests coming back, J.T. Wells, in a stroke of genius, decided to use the leftover fried chicken from dinner service and pair them with the waffles intended for the breakfast crowd. Pow, a star was born! Chicken and waffles swept across the country, hitting Los Angeles by 1931, where a hotel called the Maryland first added it to their menu. Of course, you can't mention chicken and waffles in LA without thinking of Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, where this most excellent of combos was cemented firmly into popular culture.
Let's roll to Roscoe's and grab some days.
We're making a traditional buttermilk fried chicken.
Recipes on the website. New gloves. Boom! That's always so fun.
I like breaking down a whole chicken into 10 pieces rather than buying the pieces already butchered. It's cheaper, and you can also make stock out of the carcass after you're done. You'll end up with 2 wings, 2 breasts, each cut in half to make 4 pieces, 2 thighs, and 2 drumsticks. You'll next want to soak the pieces in buttermilk to tenderize the chicken overnight, or at least a few hours in advance of when you plan to fry. Don't worry, I'm not keeping the herbs and spices a secret, unlike some people. The natural enzymes and slight acidity partially break down the proteins in the chicken, making it more tender. A similar technique is found in Indian and Middle Eastern cuisine, except yogurt is used instead of buttermilk, to the same effect though. Mix up a dredge consisting of 4 cups AP flour, salt, black pepper, and cayenne pepper. Take the chicken out of its well-seasoned buttermilk bath and pass it through the dredging mixture. Press the flour firmly into the flesh of the chicken so that it's caked on. Lay the chicken out on a parchment-lined sheet tray and get ready to fry. Fill a large stock pot with enough oil to submerge a few chicken pieces in it. I used about 64 fluid ounces. Slowly bring the temperature up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure that you have a digital thermometer on hand and you're checking the temp of your oil regularly. Once you're up to heat, go ahead and let's start frying 3 to 4 pieces of chicken for our first batch. We're doing a 2-stage fry for our chicken, meaning we'll cook the chicken first at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 to 12 minutes or until the chicken has reached an internal temperature of 155 degrees Fahrenheit. At that point, the chicken will come out of the oil and we'll turn the heat on the fryer up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Our second fry will be much shorter, only 3 to 5 minutes. We're done when the chicken is dark golden brown and delicious.
I like to take my oven and preheat it to the lowest setting when I'm doing this. We're just going through a lot of different steps for 2 different recipes, and if you want everything to be warm on the plate and you're not a veteran skilled line cook, then the best way to do it is to keep all of your products on a sheet tray in the oven so they stay warm, everything hot on the plate together. What to do about all this leftover frying oil? This is probably the biggest barrier to more people frying at home. It's not that deep frying is necessarily hard or takes any kind of special technique. It's that you have to dispose of all this grease when you're done, and people just don't want to deal with it. I get it. That makes total sense. First, let that oil cool down to a temperature where it's safe to handle. It can still be warm, just don't let it be hot enough to actually burn you. Take a mesh strainer fitted with a coffee filter and then pass the oil through it so that we can remove the majority of the organic bits and burned pieces that are still floating around in your oil. Most people are under the misconception that you can only use oil once. I only recommend this if you have fried fish or shellfish. Most oil can be used 2 to 3 times if you're doing proteins, or even up to 8 times if you're doing potato chips or just frying vegetables in it. To store your used oil, I've developed a habit of saving every single glass jar that I get from the grocery store. That way, whenever I need a container, I have it readily available and I don't care if I throw it out.
Seal the jars with a tight-fitting lid and keep the jars in the refrigerator or freezer, and be sure to use the oil within 6 weeks. When the time comes to dispose of your oil, do not pour it down the sink. This has literal downstream effects not only to your soon-to-be fucked plumbing, but on the poor fishies who have to live in it. Check to see if your local recycling center has a cooking oil recycling program. If not, your only choice is to throw the whole jar away with the oil in it.
We're making these waffles like Audrey Hepburn in a Diane von Furstenberg wrap dress. Belgian.
Their light fluffiness is thanks to the whipped egg whites that are folded into the batter. I would recommend having a stand mixer at least to whip the egg whites, otherwise you got some work cut out for you. First, combine all the dry ingredients together in a large bowl. Use a whisk to thoroughly mix. In another bowl, measure out all the liquid ingredients. Separate the eggs, adding the yolks to the bowl of liquid ingredients. Whisk the wet ingredients together and then slowly add them to the dry ingredients, mixing to a smooth consistency. The whites you can put into a bowl of the stand mixer. It's important that you don't have any yolks in the egg whites. Any fat from the yolks will prevent the egg whites from whipping to stiff peaks. If you're all clear, set the mixer to high speed and whip until they stand up like a DQ blizzard. Using a spatula, gently fold the egg whites into the batter, lifting from the bottom and pulling it over the top to combine. When there are no visible streaks of fluffy egg whites left, you're good to stop mixing. Preheat the waffle iron and when it's hot, oil it with some spray. There's no standardized measure of batter to add to your iron. Yours is probably a different size or shape from mine, and it's pretty annoying. A good rule of thumb is to spoon enough waffle batter to cover 50% of the iron's surface at a depth where none of the grid underneath pokes through. Have you ever looked at the waffle iron, waiting for that light to turn green, and asked yourself, how does it know?
Does it have a small timer inside that's like knows the setting of the heat and then basically how long it should take to cook that waffle? Is there a moisture sensor inside of it that tells how much steam is being released from the waffle at a given point? What about waffle makers that aren't even adjustable? How do they know when the waffles are done? Nope, just a thermometer that knows when the temperature of the plates has come back up to the proper setting. Yeah, I know. Another one of life's mysteries solved unspectacularly. I was really hoping for a little bit more engineering going on at that point.
When your waffle maker finally does give you the green light, open that puppy back up and pull the waffles to a tray. Repeat until you're out of batter.
And away we go.
To top our chicken and waffles, we gotta go with 100% maple syrup. But I'm also going to mix up some softened butter and spicy honey.
Yeah, we're making hot honey butter. What do you think this is?
This stuff is pretty cool, and you see products like it popping up a lot around grocery stores lately. It's basically honey with chili flakes mixed into it, but man is it good.
If you're like me, you've probably I'm not keeping the secret spices. Now the natural enzymes and slight acidity. So that we can remove the majority of the And unless you're a skilled veteran line cook, it's gonna be difficult. Jesus Christ. To store the oil, I've developed a habit. Motherfucker. So stupid. It's so dumb. No one's gonna get it. Thank you to our supporters on Ko-fi who help make this show possible. You guys are awesome. Why don't you go check out one of our other videos? They've all got recipe guides with them to help you complete this at home.